Did you know that, according to the Bible, many people spend an entire year asking God to bless their finances, but without realizing it, they maintain an error that blocks that blessing from the very first month? They begin January with hope, with goals, with promises, with fasting, with prayers, but as the months pass, they go back into debt. They return to disorder. They return to anxiety. They return to the same frustration. And then they say, "This year didn't work either." Not because God failed, not because the Bible doesn't work, but because they asked for blessing without correcting the error that was blocking it from the beginning. The Bible teaches that prosperity is not only an economic result, but a spiritual consequence. It does not depend solely on how much you earn, but on how you manage, how you decide, how you obey. Today, I am not going to talk to you about quick formulas to make money, but about the financial error that, if not corrected, blocks the blessing of the entire year, even if you pray, fast, and work hard. Stay until the end, because the last point is the one that destroys the most people in silence. 1. Praying for prosperity without changing habits. One of the most common errors is asking for prosperity without touching the habits that produce the disorder. People pray for money, but continue spending impulsively. They ask for abundance, but manage with negligence. They pray for stability, but live in constant improvisation. Many want financial miracles without processes of discipline. James 2:17 says that faith, if it has no works, is dead. This does not mean that prayer is useless, but that prayer without obedience becomes only words. Not because God lacks power, but because He works together with human obedience. God can open doors, but He will not bless irresponsibility. Proverbs 13:11 teaches, "Wealth gained hastily will dwindle, but whoever gathers little by little will increase it." This principle destroys the mentality of the lucky break. Whoever wants everything fast, everything without process, everything without discipline, ends up losing. Real prosperity is progressive. It is built with small, constant, disciplined habits. Many believe that changing the year is enough to change their life, but the calendar does not change habits. Results do not change just because we enter January. They change when decisions change. As long as you keep the same habits, you will obtain the same results, even if you pray harder. God does not multiply intentions. He multiplies obedience. 2. Giving God what is left over, and not the first fruits. Another error that blocks the blessing of the entire year is reversing the spiritual order of money. Many say that God is first, but in practice, God is last. First come the expenses, first come the debts, first comes consumption, first comes entertainment, first come personal commitments, and if anything is left, then it is given to God. Proverbs 3:9 and 10 says, "Honor the Lord with your possessions, and with the first fruits of all your increase, so your barns will be filled with plenty." The first fruits are not what is left over. The first fruits are what comes first. What comes first represents priority, and priority reveals who governs your life. Matthew 6:33 says, "But seek first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all these things shall be added to you." When the order is reversed, the promise is also disconnected. Many people work all year asking for provision, but they sustain a system where God never occupies first place financially. And when God is not first, stability will always be fragile. It is not about an amount, it is about a position. God does not need your money, but you need to put God in the correct place so that your financial system has spiritual backing. When God is first, everything else is reordered. When God is last, everything else falls apart, sooner or later. If this video is helping you, subscribe to the channel Biblical Finances and leave in the comments what you have learned so far. 3. Living in debt for appearances. Debt out of necessity is a struggle, but debt for appearances is slavery. Many people fall into financial trouble not because they earn little, but because they seek to maintain an image they cannot afford. They go into debt to appear successful, stable, with status, power, or prosperity they do not actually possess. Proverbs 22:7 says, "The rich rules over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender. Debt does not only bind money, it binds the mind, sleep, peace, and decisions. A person in debt lives reacting, not planning. They live under pressure, not focused. They live sustaining payments, not building a future. 1 Timothy 6:6 says that godliness with contentment is great gain. When there is no contentment, there will never be enough money. There will always be a new thing to buy, a new status to reach, a new comparison to maintain. Many block their blessing not because of poverty, but because of social pressure. They buy to prove, spend to impress, go into debt so as not to fall behind. But God does not bless appearances. God blesses truth, and financial freedom begins when the slavery of image is broken. 4. Not planning and living by improvisation. Another error that blocks the blessing is living without financial planning. There is no budget, no control, no clear goals, no direction. People live reacting to expenses instead of governing them. Everything is done by impulse, by immediate need, by the emotion of the moment. Luke 14:28 says, "For which of you, intending to build a tower, does not sit down first and count the cost, whether he has enough to finish it?" Planning is not a lack of faith. It is biblical wisdom. Faith does not eliminate responsibility, it strengthens it. Proverbs 21:5 says, "The plans of the diligent lead surely to abundance, but everyone who is hasty comes surely to poverty." To improvise with money is to despise the wisdom of God. God is a God of design, not of chaos. Everything in creation was planned. Many say, God will provide, but refuse to plan. They confuse faith with negligence. God does provide, but He does not bless disorder. Where there is no control, there is no progress. Where there is no planning, there is constant leakage of resources. Money needs direction, because if it does not have it, it will always escape. 5. Wanting more money without developing more character. Another of the most dangerous errors is to ask for increase without having developed enough character to sustain it. People want more income without more self-control. They want expansion without discipline. They want multiplication without maturity. But God does not give blessings that destroy. Luke 16:10 says that whoever is faithful in what is least is also faithful in much. God evaluates faithfulness before releasing multiplication. The size of the income does not determine the capacity to manage. Faithfulness does. Zechariah 4:10 says that we should not despise the day of small beginnings. Many despise their current income because they consider that it is not enough. But the real question is not whether it is enough, but whether it is being well managed. Because if you cannot manage 100, you will not be able to manage 1,000 either. When money grows faster than character, the blessing becomes destruction. Marriages are lost, focus is lost, faith is lost. God will not give you something that takes you out of His will. First, He forms the steward, and then He releases the stewardship. 6. Greed and constant comparison. Greed is silent. It doesn't always shout. Sometimes it only whispers, "You need that too. You should have that too. You also deserve that level." Luke 12:15 says, "Take heed and beware of covetousness." Jesus did not say beware of some, He said of all. Comparison steals peace. There will always be someone with more. There will always be someone at a different level. There will always be someone who advances faster. And if your happiness depends on what others have, you will never be at peace with what God has given you. Exodus 20:17 teaches, "You shall not covet." But today, greed is fed every day by social media, advertising, and unrealistic lifestyles. Many people spend not out of necessity, but because of emotional pressure. And that emotional spending turns into debt, anxiety, and frustration. Greed blocks blessing because it never gives thanks. It never rests. It is never satisfied. And where there is no gratitude, prosperity stalls. Blessing flows where there is contentment. 7. Believing that more money will fix an inner disorder. This is one of the most destructive errors. Many people believe that when they earn more, everything will be put in order. that when they receive that raise, that opportunity, or that business, they will finally be okay. But the Bible teaches the opposite. Money amplifies what is already in the heart. If there is disorder, money will amplify the disorder. If there is anxiety, money will amplify the anxiety. If there is irresponsibility, money will amplify the irresponsibility. 1 Timothy 6:9 says that those who want to get rich fall into temptation and a snare, not because money is evil, but because the heart is not always ready to handle it. Money does not fix spiritual problems. Money does not heal relationships. Money does not replace inner order. If your life is not in order with little, it will not be in order with much. Healthy prosperity does not begin in the bank account, it begins in the soul. The financial error that blocks the blessing of the entire year is not the lack of opportunities, it is not the economy, it is not the government, it is not the salary. It is the disorder of the heart reflected in the way money is managed. God is not looking for full wallets. He is looking for faithful hearts. When the heart is put in order, money finds its place. When the priority is correct, provision flows with stability. This year will not be different because of the calendar. It will be different because of the decisions you make before God. The Bible does not teach financial magic. It teaches eternal principles. And every principle ignored produces consequences. God does not bless chaos. He blesses obedience. He does not multiply improvisation. He multiplies faithfulness. If this message built you up, subscribe now to the channel Biblical Finances. Activate the notification bell and join us every week for teachings of biblical wisdom applied to your finances.